Next, I would like to introduce Richard Gagnon, who teaches political science in Quebec City. Richard is a doctoral candidate in political science at Laval University, where he's doing his thesis on Baha'i administrative order. This past August, he authored a newspaper article on the faith. He is a member of the executive committee for the Association for Baha'i Studies. And his presentation tonight is on the structuring of power in the Baha'i administrative order. Mr. Gagnon.
Good evening. Thank you. Well, as you may suppose, with the name I have, I am a French Canadian, and my mother tongue is French, so my English is not very good. But I promise you to do my best. I am particularly proud today to be a French Canadian. I have the same ethnic origin as Louis Bourgeois, the architect of the Baha'i House of Worship in Wilmette, designed as a National Historical Monument in 1978 by the American authorities, and described as the first new idea in religious architecture since the 13th century. Moreover, the site itself of the House of Worship is linked with the history of yet another French Canadian, Antoine Wilmette, a fur trader living near Lake Michigan in an area now named the town of Wilmette, in memory of that first white colonist to settle there permanently. However, my talk this evening is not to develop the many ties between the Baha'i faith and French Canadian. That taste will fall to a future historian, perhaps a French Canadian. The context for this paper, as you know, is my doctoral degree in political science, which I am presently completing at Laval University in Quebec. My thesis, which deals with the Baha'i administrative order, contains a first section defining the problem to be researched, the theoretical model, and the methodological approach. This evening, it is my privilege to present to you a part of that first section. Basically, my analysis treats the structuring of power in the Baha'i administrative order. It is my thesis that, contrary to other forms of social organization, the Baha'i faith contains structural mechanisms that prevent a struggle for power within and between Baha'i institutions. The term structure, authority, power, election, responsibility, and institution are often mentioned in the Baha'i writing. In fact, as in most organizations, the Baha'i administrative order has mechanisms of leadership and review. Therefore, the problem of power is relevant and needs to be considered. For example, how hold power in the Baha'i administrative order? How is it acquired? How is it exercised? What is the actual electoral procedure? On what criteria do voters base their choice? Are those elected to office account to their electors? How can voters communicate with those they have elected? How are the needs of the community made known? How can those elected to office perform their duties adequately? And a question that is last but not least, does there exist a struggle for power in the Baha'i administrative order, with all that is implied therein in loss of time, money, and effort, in bargaining, corruption, jealousy, and competition. We will attempt to briefly answer this question within the context of various problems related to the functioning of our Western democracy. Every political party, in addition to having an ideology and an electoral platform, must elect a leader, usually at a convention. This fundamental requirement actually constitutes a potential source of division within the party. Indeed, since each candidate represents a faction of leaning within the body of the convention delegates, the elect leader often has the job of re-establish the unity of the party before exercising power. An ideal candidate qualities and his means for getting elected are also influenced by the requirement of having a party leader. A particular candidate will be said to lack charisma and another a good enough background. A future leader's money, television appearance, strategy, and even dress will be important factors. In such conditions, delegate can hardly elect the best candidate. This same remark could apply to the choice of a party's official candidate in each electoral district. One might also wonder about the real motives behind a person's going into the political arena. Social preoccupations such as prestige, high salaries, desire for power and publicity might be considered as possible reasons. In the Baha'i administrative order, institutions alone are invested with power and authority. Shaghi Effendi wrote that the cause must not be allowed to center around any Baha'i personality, and that assemblies and not individuals constitute the free rock on which the administration is built. In a parliamentary form of government, the elect leader and the member of his party must compete with other political parties in a general election if they wish to come to power. In a presidential system, competition between political parties also occurs at two important times: the election of the member of Congress, upper and lower houses, and the presidential election. The ultimate goal of the political confrontation, called an electoral campaign, is to come to power. In each electoral district, as well as nationally, the voters have to be seduced by all kinds of promise. Since a simple majority of seats in Parliament is necessary in a parliamentary system to form the government, the electoral platform will be so general to satisfy the greatest number of people possible that it will be similar to that of the opposition parties. As for young parties, with their new or elitist idea, they are condemned at best to a role in the opposition. Another consequence of such a first struggle for power is that the dynamic of confrontation keep possibly valid ideas from being objectively considered. Indeed, if those ideas come from the other side, they are automatically ignored, if not rejected. What is important for a political party in its race for power is to win votes and show that it is the best party to govern. To allow that opponent's opinion be just or his project constructive would be equivalent to political suicide. An electoral campaign is also characterized by an outgoing government using its administrative machinery to win votes. For example, it may implement popular projects before a general election that it itself has called. In addition, the choice of a date for the election depends, in large part, on how popular the government is with the public, a popularity determined by increasing sophisticated opinion polls. Add to this political battle the inevitable games of pressure tactics and bargaining, public insults, advertising assaults, fraud, and election techniques, and it becomes evident that the best interests of citizens as a whole are not what is really involved in an electoral campaign. In the Baha'i administrative order, the members of local and national spiritual assemblies are elected each year on a set date, while those of the Universal House of Justice are elected every 5 years. For these elections, Baha'i electoral rules prohibit nomination for candidacy. Consequently, there are no electoral campaigns in the Baha'i administrative order. Shoghi Effendi makes it clear that the elector is called upon to vote for none but those whom prayers and reflection have inspired him to uphold, and to consider the names of only those who can best combine the necessary qualities of unquestioned loyalty, of selfless devotion, of a well-trained mind, of recognized ability and mature experience. The second basic objective of a political party, after that of coming to power, is to stay there. After having won the leadership of his party and the national election, the Prime Minister or President must now see to it that he remains in office. Important administrative decisions, nomination, government, advertisement, the budget, the naming of the cabinet, the announcing of public programs, all have political overtones of self-interest. In every situation, the impact of the voters will be assessed by political advisors, whose specific responsibilities is to evaluate the consequences of the government's action on its own image or on that of its minister. Here again, this practice does not favor the best interests of citizens as a whole. To evaluate the decisions they make, professional politicians turn to considerations that are personal or arbitrary, or that are based on the needs of the moment. The fact that those elected are accountable to the voters may also be criticized. According to democratic practice, since elect representatives carry out a mandate from the people, they are always accountable to those who elect them, and thus fundamentally tied to the voters. In such a context of dependence, those that govern are obliged to make decisions that are subject to the approval of those they represent. This means that when a political party is elected by part of the voters and thus tied to their vested interest, it will have to govern according to the objective it has proposed and promised to accomplish. What happened then to the best interests and needs of the collectivity? What becomes of the expectation of those who vote for an opposition party, for an independent, or who haven't voted at all? Of course, the fact that elect representatives are accountable to the voters is not wholly negative. One clear advantage is that the people can remove leaders from office who misuse their power. The exercise of power may also be considered from the point of view of the role of minority parties within political institutions. This is particularly revealing in parliamentary forms of government, where the members of the opposition have a specific and understandable goal, that of proving the ineptitude of the government to exercise power. Wanting to come to power to fulfill their vision of a viable society, they will be more inclined to stress the failures of the government rather than its accomplishment. In such conditions, all that can result is an atmosphere of distrust, suspicion, fear, tension, conflict, rivalry, and confrontation. In the Baha'i administrative order, those elected are not tied to a specific mandate, particular ideology, social class, or pressure group in the performance of their duties, for the obvious reason that they did not seek the position that they hold. Their decisions are thus free from any partisan, electoral, or mandatory considerations, in contradiction to the decision of those elected to civil office. Shaghi Effendi has written that in the Baha'i administrative order, those elected to office are not allowed to be governed by the feelings, the general opinion, and even the conviction of the mass of the faithful or of those who directly elect them. They are to follow in a prayerful attitude the dictates and promptings of their consciences. They must acquaint themselves with the condition prevailing among the community, must weigh dispassionately in their minds the merits of any case presented for their consideration, but must reserve for themselves the right of an unfettered decision. Although Baha'i election may provide a mechanism for removal from office, it should not accordingly be presumed that those elected are responsible for carrying out a specific mandate, as in democratic form of government. Rather, the voters want to improve the quality of those elected, It should not be forgotten that Baha'i electors do not vote for a program but for individuals. Likewise, if elected members of Baha'i institutions are not responsible for representing the interests of those who elect them, as is a member of parliament with respect to his constituency, this does not keep the community from the possibility of exercising by means of election a certain control over the behavior of those elected. Another aspect of the exercise of power is the problem of communication between political leaders and the public, and between those elected to office and the community. On the one hand, it is commonly said of political figures that they are inaccessible and often ill-informed about the actual problems of society. On the other hand, those elected complain about the solitude of power. These are consequences of the gigantic scale of our institution and an excessive centralization of power. As a result, decisions made are often inappropriate to the problem of citizens as a whole. In such conditions, lack of communication and frustration are felt from all sides. As for government service, when objectives are defined solely in terms of technological efficiency, profitability, and control, the results are, generally speaking, an unwieldy bureaucracy, a depersonalization of services, and a dehumanization of public administration. Keeping this problem in mind, it is important to become aware of the procedure prescribed in the Baha'i administrative order, which allow elect members of various institutions to, as Shaghi Effendi stated, acquaint themselves with the condition prevailing among the community. The main institution established for that purpose is the 19-day feast. Since the Baha'i calendar is made up of 19 months of 19 days each, there are thus 19 recognized and regular occasions for general consultation on the part of the community and for consultation between the spiritual assembly and the member of the community. It is also apparent that regional and national Baha'i convention present additional opportunities for consultation, such as between voters and elect delegates, and between delegates and the member of the National Spiritual Assembly. In addition to the relationship between Baha'i institution and the community, which might be qualified as internal or organizational, another type of relationship exists between the Baha'i faith and society in general. At this point in our analysis, the conduct of Baha'i individuals and institutions within society in general needs particular attention. While Baha'is are free to vote in civil elections, they may under no circumstances become involved in politics and must obey the government of the country in which they live. Many explanations have been given in Baha'i texts concerning reason for this social teaching. You know better than me the citation of Shaghi Effendi on that subject. In conclusion, it follows clearly from the foregoing that under present conditions. An individual who seeks power as leader of a political party must be ready to pay the prices of fierce struggle and ever-present competition. This price is the same, be it for a member of parliament, a city mayor, or a union leader. The evident struggle in the political arena is explained, we feel, by the confrontation between society's vested interest. In this sense, political competition is a reflection of deeper social competition. For example, the conflict of interest which sets workers against management is expressed by a desire on the part of these groups to control the mechanism of government so as to be able to accomplish their specific ambitions. One may therefore suppose that in eliminating sources of conflict and injustice in society, the struggle for power would simultaneously disappear from the political scene. By making clear that institutions are not individual and by making clear that institutions and not individual are invested with authority, by prohibiting all electoral campaigning, and by proclaiming that those elected are not accountable to their electors, the Baha'i administrative order has been endowed with concrete means of preventing power from being personalized with all its attendant material advantages, and above all, of evolving a stronger for power so destructive to the interest of the collectivity. Thank you very much for